If you love podcasting as much as I do, you may be considering starting your own. Starting a podcast has been one of the best decisions I have ever made, but getting started can feel overwhelming. Buzzsprout is the easiest and most professional way to start a podcast. Buzzsprout has helped over 100,000 people launch their own podcasts, including me. Buzzsprout will launch your show on all of the major podcast platforms like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Play, to name a few. You also get a podcast website, audio players that can be dropped into other websites, and stats of who is listening, and so much more. Buzzsprout also publishes blog posts, podcasts, and YouTube videos every week. They are great tools and have useful information from expert podcasters. To start your own podcast and get a $20 Amazon gift card, follow the link in our show notes. This lets Buzzsprout know that I sent you, and it supports my show. Buzzsprout, the easiest way to start a podcast.
Crime, Wine, and Chaos contains adult language and graphic content. Listener discretion is advised.
Hey listeners, I'm Amber.
And I'm Naomi. And this is Crime, Wine, and Chaos. Hi, how are you?
Splendid. How are you?
So good.
Oh my God.
All of a sudden, you went like pixelated on me. Did your internet get weird?
No, my face fell apart. That really happened. It hurt.
I'm so sorry.
It's all right. It's all right. It's all
no,
right.
like you are so like you're just a blob now. There's no.
I mean, that tracks for today.
No.
I feel that today. I've been sitting here in the green room since 4. This is.
Oh my God, you guys! I was driving home from work and like Amber's calling me. I'm like, oh my God, it's like 4:15. We're supposed to record in 45 minutes. Oh, I hope nothing's wrong. And I answer the phone and she's like, hi, so I'm looking at my calendar and it says record with Naomi at 5 o'clock. I'm like, yeah. She's like, okay, well, I'm just sitting here in the call waiting for you. So I'll see myself out.
No. Hi.
See you at 5. Okay.
I'm sitting. Okay, not only that, I'm sitting in front of a giant wall calendar where I have all of my things, so that and it says in giant recording with Naomi at 5, and I'm sitting here, and it's like 10 after 4, and I'm like, where is she?
Yep.
I'll just literally see myself out. I can't. I don't know what's wrong with me lately.
You know what? At least, like I said on the phone, at least it was the right day. You know.
Oh,
you're getting closer. You're getting closer.
Oh my God. What is wrong with me? Oh. Anyway.
It seems to me like you just have a lot on your plate, sissy. You have a lot on your plate. I do.
But we all do, you know?
I mean,
so
but it's true. It's true. I have a lot going on. Mm-hmm. I did want to say something about last week's episode. Because you guys were cracking me up. I have to say this. So there was this part in the story that Jade told about Louise. Okay, first of all, I can't believe through that entire story, neither one of you took the opportunity to actually say, geez, Louise. I cannot believe it. It never got said once.
I know.
Like, my question is that where the saying came from? Because it seems like Louise was the reason why we even have that phrase.
Probably.
Jeez, Louise.
Jeez,
right?
Louise. Yeah, I didn't even think of that. What a missed opportunity.
Really passed you by. The other thing is the jewelry that got stolen out of the hotel where her husband, that one husband worked. And you were like, do they pay for their hotels and jewelry?
What?
Do you remember that part?
Yes, and I made a Zelda reference.
Yeah, okay, here's the deal. So you know how when you go to hotels now and your hotel room almost always has like a safe in it? In your room?
Oh, yeah. That's what that was.
Yeah.
Jeez Louise.
People travel. Women bring their fancy jewelry. They're going to wear it to dinner. But then when they're not wearing it, they need to lock it up. But back then, not every hotel room had its own safe. So there would be a safe that was entrusted, like the hotel, like the clients would entrust the hotel to keep their valuables safe for them.
Well, that was a fucking mistake. Obviously.
Clearly. Hence why I think we have our own personal safes in our room, and we set the.
Oh my gosh, we can thank Louise for maybe two things now: Geez Louise and hotel safes.
Geez Louise, thank you. Yes, exactly, exactly.
All right. Well, the more you know.
There you go.
Yeah.
Anyway, I had to jump in on that. But yeah, I am super excited. I'm super excited to hear this crime story. You told me yesterday that it's a long one. It's a big mamma jamma.
It is. I'm going to get into it. I also need to
Oh, yeah, right. I'm so sorry because I'm just drinking water and I don't even think about your wine. I apologize.
No, it's okay, but this one's funny because it's called CrowdPleazin with a Z. It came from and it is pleasing me. I don't know about a whole entire crowd, but I'm pleased. It is a 2020 Zinfandel from Dry Creek Valley, Sonoma County. It came from my Naked Wines order.
Oh, well, that's lovely.
CrowdPleazin. Okay.
Go.
So
yes, do
this story, I'm pretty sure you told me about this. So I don't know if this. Oh, okay. I need to set the stage for listeners that don't know.
Okay.
When I was, I think 12, I watched the movie Candyman. And I was never fucking the same. It traumatized me.
That's true.
I know.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, you literally, I can't even, you can't even like say Candyman. No, you can't even there was a long time where we couldn't even say Candyman. It was literally it was like Voldemort. It was like the one who could not be named because Amber you would be so freaked out just by hearing the name Candyman.
Fucking yes. And Michael had never watched it, so he pulled up a trailer and was watching the trailer and I could hear it and I was so triggered. I was so fucking triggered. And so many people are like, I bet if you watched that as an adult, you would think it was silly. And I'm like, I probably not. I will not even go there. I won't go there. Anyway, all that to say that movie is loosely based on a true story. And I'm going to tell you about that. Yeah. Are you the one that told me about this?
I don't think I did. I think I've known for a long time that it was based on a true story. And I think I've heard the story roughly, like a quick and dirty Cliff Notes version of it, but I don't think I've ever listened to a deep dive on it as far as I can recall.
Okay. Well, I've got a deep dive.
Excellent.
So I'm going to tell you
about
our friend. I'm going to bring it. I'm going to tell you about Ruthie Mae McCoy.
Ruthie Mae McCoy. Okay.
Yeah. So it is April 27th. I've already had too much wine. Love it. 1987 at 8:45 p.m.
Okay.
And Chicago's 911 dispatch gets a call from 52-year-old Ruthie Mae McCoy. She lives in Chicago's ABLA Housing Projects in the Grace Abbott High Rise in apartment 1109.
Those are like those big mamma jamma projects, right? Where they're like, just like in the movie where they're like, they were really big. They built them in like the 50s and the 60s, and then they never really kept them up. But they were like really huge, like high rise, low income housing, right?
Mm-hmm. And I'll get into ABLA a little bit and why. I mean, all the reasons why it's problematic and why it's scary. The movie references Cabrini Green, which is actually a housing project down the street.
Right.
Yes, but this is the famous. ABLA.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So she's calling from her apartment 1109 in the high rise, and she says the people next door are coming through her bathroom wall. The dispatcher, the people next door are coming through her bathroom wall.
Oh my God.
Yeah. The dispatcher is confused by her statement and asks her to clarify if someone is trying to break in, and Ruthie says, quote, "Yeah, they throwed the cabinet down. I'm in the projects. You can reach my bathroom. They want to come through my bathroom."
What?
So she's referring to the medicine cabinet.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know. Chills.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. The dispatcher doesn't really know how to... she doesn't know how to classify this report, so it goes into the system as a disturbance with a neighbor. Yeah.
Okay.
Correct. The police are slow to respond, and before anyone arrives, they get two more calls, one at 9:02 and one at 9:04. Both are neighbors reporting that they just heard gunshots coming from apartment 1109.
Is that... What's her name again?
That's Ruthie's apartment.
That's Ruthie's apartment. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So they arrive at 9:10, and 4 officers bang on Ruthie's door, but nobody answers. So the officers have dispatch call back on the number that Ruthie called from, and they can hear the phone ringing from the hallway, but nobody picks up. So one of the officers radios another officer who was standing outside of the building, and he instructs that officer to go down to the office for the housing complex and get the key to Ruthie's apartment. So when that officer returns with the key doesn't fit. So they knock on Ruthie's.
What?
Yeah, it doesn't work. I don't know if they were given the wrong key. And these places are dilapidated. Doesn't even cover it. We'll get to that.
Sure. I mean, they've been. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, like sad. So the key doesn't work. They knock on her door again. No answer. They knock on Ruthie's neighbor's door and try to get some additional information. And the only information they get is that Ruthie is someone who always answers her door.
Okay.
Yeah. So even though there were 2 other calls saying that there were gunshots, at 9:48, after trying to contact Ruthie for 38 minutes, the officers give up and leave.
They didn't go in?
Mm-mm. No. Yeah. Yeah. That comes up later. This is all so fucking problematic and for so many reasons.
Okay.
So Deborah lastly lives down the hall, and she sees Ruthie every day because Ruthie stops by to say hi on her way out for the day, and then she also stops by to say hi on her way back home. So on that following day, April 23rd, Deborah doesn't get a visit from Ruthie, so she calls the police to do a wellness check. So 6 officers, along with the housing authority security, show up. They knock on the door, and they get no answer. And then the police...
6 officers?
Yes. Well, I think, too, this is... The first time it was 4. And I think... not that I generally want to throw officers a bone, but these are some of the most dangerous housing projects in the world. So I don't think it's uncommon.
Oh, so they're going in a pack on purpose.
Yeah, for their own safety, I think, even when it's just like a neighbor dispute, right? So the police suggest breaking down the door, but the housing authority security says that if they break down the door, they'll be responsible for paying for it. So the police don't want to have to deal with that, so they leave Ruthie's apartment again without making any contact with her.
Shut the fuck up. Are you kidding me?
I'm not kidding you. And these are the fucking projects where probably, like, what would that cost them?
What does it cost to replace a door? Like $20?
Exactly. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. So.
And also, every time anything like that has ever happened, the police have never paid for any of that. Mm-hmm. Like, the homeowner or the renter always gets stuck with that bill.
Yeah. You know, it's a slippery... this can go into a whole rabbit hole because it's a slippery slope.
Sorry.
Where I certainly don't want the laws to change where officers can just fucking wander into your house. But then there's other times where it's like,
course,
right? Like that's where it gets sticky because it's like, I don't know. It's clearly an emergency. They heard gunshots, right? I don't know. So the next day, Friday, April 24th, Deborah still hasn't seen Ruthie, so she calls the housing project office. And someone from the office arrives with a carpenter who drills the lock and gets the door open. And inside, they find Ruthie laying on her bedroom floor in a pool of blood. She has been shot in her left shoulder, her left thigh, her abdomen, and her upper right arm.
So she bled to death.
Yeah, and also... they determined it was the bullet from her upper right arm that cut through her pulmonary vein, and she died from internal bleeding. But that also means that there's a chance that she could have been alive when they came the first time.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. She literally laid there and bled, like slowly bled to death.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So fucked up. So I'm going to tell you about Ruthie.
Please do.
So... Ruthie Mae was born in Hughes, Arkansas in 1935. She was one of 8 children. Her family struggled financially, so in search of better job prospects, they moved to the south side of Chicago. Her dad is eventually able to find work as a coal loader around the city, but the pay sucks, and the family is struggling more in Chicago than they did in Arkansas. Ruthie attends Phillip High School for a year, but ends up dropping out in the 10th grade to help the family and to look after her siblings. And Ruthie is, this is an African-American family. That's important to note because of all the fucking reasons. Anyway, in her 20s, her family starts to notice a change in her behavior. She has sudden, unexplained fits of rage. She talks to herself. And of course, at this time, mental health wasn't something that was discussed. And so Ruthie's family, and aside from that, they didn't have the resources to help her anyway. So she just goes untreated.
Right.
She goes on to have several different jobs as a housekeeper, a laundromat attendant. But because of her declining mental health, it's really difficult for her to keep a job.
Yeah.
Yeah, her family is also deeply religious, and her brother Hayward goes on to become a preacher, and he says that Ruthie's condition is a result of her turning her back on God.
Oh.
Hayward wants to get the demons out.
Oh, no.
I know. Oh, God.
I can't.
I know. Science, people. Science. I mean, it's okay if you're religious and you lean on that for support, but religion isn't going to cure a mental health disorder.
No, it doesn't cure it doesn't cure any of the physical ailments. So,
no,
yeah.
It doesn't.
And mental health is a physical ailment.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Yep.
So at the age of 27, Ruthie gives birth to a daughter that she names Vernita. Dad's not in the picture, so Ruthie is trying to care for Vernita the best she can as a single mother with some pretty substantial mental health issues. She is hospitalized several times, and during these hospitalizations, Vernita is bounced around to whatever family member or friend is able to help at the time. I know. Ruthie is prescribed prescriptions more than once after leaving the hospital, but because she can't actually afford to have it refilled, it runs out and she's right back to square one.
Yep.
This is all just like her mental health and where she lives and all of it. It's just a broken fucking system.
Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So Vernita remembers seeing her mom talk to herself and curse at strangers, but she didn't understand why. And over the next 20 years, Ruthie and Vernita live in several different low-income housing apartments together on the south and west side of Chicago. In her early 20s, Vernita becomes a mom herself. And just a year after giving birth, she is arrested for battery charges, and she is sent to a pretty short jail stint. I think it was 1 year. But this left Ruthie caring for her grandson by herself.
Well, how old was Vernita's son when that happened?
He's 1.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So Ruthie's got a 1-year-old. She's now probably like in her 50s. Her mental health is, it's bad. She's in a basement apartment that floods. And so she's forced to move out. And so this is when she applies for emergency housing with the Chicago Housing Authority. Uh-huh. So let me tell you about the ABLA homes, which are...
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the Jane Addams Homes, Robert Brooks Homes, Loomis Courts, and Grace Abbott Homes. That's what the acronym stands for. It's a Chicago Housing Authority development comprised of 4 separate public housing projects on the west side of Chicago. So ABLA is the acronym for the 4 different housing developments, which is Addams, Brooks, Loomis, and Abbott. It has a little over 3,500 units.
Oh my God.
I know. It's fucking huge. It's fucking huge. It goes from Cabrini Green Street on the north end to 15th Street on the south end, and from Blue Isle Avenue on the east end to Ashland Avenue on the west end. So it's like several city blocks big.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. It's held more than 17,000 residents. So it has 33 2-story row homes and 7 high-rise buildings. That's a fucking lot. Yeah. In 1983, it was home to roughly 3,600 people. All of them were Black, and most of them were below the age of 18. All of them were Black. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. This is so fucking sad. The average annual income at the ABLA complex was $4,500 a year.
A year?
Yes. Yeah. So they also have a huge drug dealing gang problem. This gang is called the Paymasters, and they basically just take over empty units to do their drug deals.
The Paymasters?
The Paymasters, which like this is pre-PayPal, but that's like what it sounds like.
No, I'm like Paymasters is like some sort of like snappy new startup that's gonna take out PayPal and MasterCard. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like this is like this is like a Web3. This is like a Web3 crypto project. Paymasters.
Oh yeah, some kind of merger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just some kind of like new app for your phone, and it just has like a like its logo is like PM in some like really sleek font, you know, in a
I'm
square.
going to use that now. Instead of like, can I Venmo you? I'm going to be like, can I Paymaster you?
Exactly. Exactly.
Oh my God. So yeah,
that doesn't sound like a gang. It just doesn't. They just don't sound hard to me. They don't sound hard. It sounds like they do go hard, but they don't sound hard to me.
They go hard. It's not good. It's not fucking good.
No, yeah.
So
no, I got you.
Yeah, all of the tenants, they're very much aware of these folks, but they don't say anything, but because it's incredibly dangerous to be a snitch, right?
Oh yeah, snitches get stitches.
Yeah, and out of all of the ABLA units or chunks or however it's, labeled, the Grace Abbott is the most dangerous section of the projects. That's where Ruthie lives. It's one of the 7 high rises. So the crime rate is twice the rate of the entire city of Chicago in the ABLA projects.
Jesus. How tall are these high rises? How many stories are the high rises?
They're 11 stories high and there's 7 of them. And they're all in like this Y. They're in a big Y shape. It's kind of spooky looking.
Yeah.
So in a 1972 study that was done in New York City, low income was done by like New York City Housing Projects. They determined that high rises were the worst kind of structure to use for public housing because it's difficult to build a strong sense of community and it's very easy to remain anonymous in a high rise. And those just like historically are the most dangerous is high rises. So Ruthie is very much aware of the dangers of the ABLA complex, and so she writes 2 separate letters to the Chicago Housing Authority and asks them not to put her in a high-rise. She wants to be in one of the row houses, but instead she's put in apartment 1109 in the Grace Abbey Y-shaped buildings. That's where she's placed. In reading this, it actually sounds like it would be safer to sleep outside than to live here.
I mean, except for the winter part in Chicago.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I just meant like as far as like safety from other people and violence.
No, yeah, I understand. Yeah, totally.
So fucking scary. So from 1983 to 85, Ruthie shares her apartment with Vernita, her now 2 children, and Vernita's boyfriend, Louis. But Ruthie and Louis don't get along very well. So in 1985, Vernita, Louis, and the kids move out, and Ruthie is now alone in the projects with her mental illness. It's not good. She misses her daughter and grandkids really like horribly, and neighbors notice that she's getting into arguments regularly with other tenants, and she starts carrying around a stick and like smacking things and yelling at people. And I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
You probably should be armed here.
I mean, with something, right? Carry a big stick and use it, you know? I think Winston Churchill said that.
Yeah, totally. But, because of this, obviously people in the complex are making fun of her. Her paranoia is just getting worse and worse and worse. And then on top of that, she's living in a violent place. So then it's like, we'll get into it later, but it's hard because it's like her fears were warranted, but she was written off as like a nut job.
Right. Of course. Yes, of course.
God, it's, she has taken upon herself to, like, when she walks down the halls, she'll turn neighbors' doorknobs to make sure that they're locked. And then if they're not, she lectures people who don't have their doors locked.
Good for her.
I know.
She sounds like Papa.
my God. We just need to give him a stick and he's good to go.
Remember that time that mom told me that she got locked out of the house once just going to get the mail because she left the front door and walked across the street to the mailbox. And when Dad walked by the front door, he locked it because it was unlocked in the middle of the day. And so she came back with the mail and she was locked out.
Yeah. Yep. That tracks. That sounds like me. That sounds like me. You know what? I have a partner that smokes, and I've more than once gotten up in the morning to find the front door unlocked because he got up in the middle of the night and went out to smoke. And I about lost my goddamn mind.
Does he not know you but at all?
No, he does. He just, everything is just like, wee.
when opposites attract.
I've more than once found his beverage that he was drinking in the laundry room. And then he's like, where'd I put my drink? I'm like, it's in the laundry room. He's like, why? I'm like, you fucking tell me why. Like, I don't know. God. Yeah. Oh, God. Yeah. Okay, so Ruthie starts attending Mount Sinai Mental Health Facility, which provides services to other residents in the projects. And they have like group therapy, group meals, arts and crafts, right? And she starts actually making real friends and having a sense of community, probably for the first time in her life.
No, I love that for her.
I love that this exists.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that for her. I love that it's a thing. She enrolls in their GED program. She becomes a mother figure to the other clients at the facility. And one staff member said that Ruthie was warm and kind and very well liked. And yeah, she's just, trying to find a way to kind of be calm and find purpose in all the things after her daughter and granddaughter have left, right?
Well, yeah. And a lot of things, like a lot of mental health stuff can be mitigated with the right surroundings and the right people in your life,
Totally. Oh, and a lot of times too, this isn't true for Ruthie. I'm speaking in personal experience. You think you have mental health issues, but actually you're just like surrounded by dickheads.
Right. I thought I had an anxiety disorder. It turns out it was just my ex-husband.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. So now we're on the day in question. So it's Wednesday, April 22nd, 1987. She heads out for the day to catch the van that takes her to Mount Sinai. She stops by Deborah's house like she does every morning and says hello and visits for a minute. She spends all day at the center and even has a conversation with one of the employees there about needing help to find new housing. She tells this employee that she has got to get out of her current situation. And the good news is that in September of 1986, Ruthie had applied for SSI. And in February of 87, she finally got it, which doubled her monthly income from $154 a month to $340 a month.
Stop it. A month? I mean, okay, this was the 80s, but even in the 80s, that was nothing.
Yeah. We need to do better.
So much better.
But the cool part for Ruthie was since she applied in September, they gave her back pay. So she got a check for almost $2,000, which is what she needed to actually do like a last damage deposit on a new apartment. Because there's no other time where Ruthie would have that much money all at once, So as police are searching Ruthie's apartment for clues, they get in contact with Vernita, and Vernita tells them that Ruthie had just received a large check that she had cashed and that the cash was kept in her apartment, but obviously the cash is gone, along with her rocking chair and a TV.
Her rocking chair?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Somebody knew she had that cash.
Yes. Uh-huh. Yeah. And the thing that's weird and kind of spooky is that her phone is missing. And of course, this is a landline, right? Because it's the 80s. And this is weird because the first time the police went to her apartment the night of the attack, they could hear the phone ringing inside, which means that whoever killed her was either still in there while the police were outside, or they came back and took her phone.
Right.
Yeah. Which is fucking spooky.
And weird because her door was locked that whole time.
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't even get in. They had to break into her apartment.
Yeah. This is where it starts getting Candyman adjacent, and it's creepy. So one of the detectives sees that the medicine cabinet is missing from the wall, and that when you crawl through the hole where the medicine cabinet goes, you have access to the apartment next door, which is apartment 1108. It's so fucking creepy.
That is a flaw in the design.
Mm-hmm. Do you think they fucking cared when they were slapping together apartments for low-income housing?
Of course they didn't care.
No. Yeah, that's a flaw. Apparently, what the purpose behind this was that the adjoining or not adjoining, but the shared wall apartments also had shared plumbing. And it created very easy access through the medicine cabinet to get to the pipes. But it was also like, so it was like a space big enough for like a human to stand there and work on pipes. But also there was the medicine cabinet to the other apartment that could just be popped out and you could walk through. It's fucking creepy. Yeah.
Okay. This is like the like, you know, we found out somebody was living in the walls of our house kind of scenario.
Stop it. I know.
Yeah.
I did that story once. That happened.
Yep. That's happened more than once. I know a few of those stories. I've heard a few of them, and
I can't.
They're the worst.
Yeah.
I would rather it was a ghost. You know what I'm saying? Like, I would rather my house was haunted than some rando weirdo was like secretly living in the walls of my fucking house.
It makes my skin crawl.
Yes.
Yeah, I hate it. So they learned that this apartment next door, 1108, is paid through May, but the people on the lease don't stay there. One of the people that does stay there is Tim Brown. And Tim Brown said that the woman on the lease is an old friend of his, and she isn't staying there anymore, so she gave him the keys. Tim Brown said that he spent the day of April 22nd inside the apartment with his friends Corey Flournoy, and that they spent the night partying on the west side. When police question Corey, he gives them the same account of the day and the evening of April 22nd. But where their stories differ is when they tell police where they slept that night.
Okay.
Tim is trying to say that they never went back to that apartment. Or no, Corey says they never went back to that apartment. Tim says that they did. Tim says that while him and Corey were at 1108, 3 more friends came over, and these friends were telling them that they learned that you can get into other people's units and rob them through the medicine cabinets in the bathroom. It's so.
I mean, you would think at this point that this was common knowledge.
Oh, for sure. With the paymasters and all.
Yeah, like everybody had to know about this. Like how Ruthie didn't know that was even possible at this point. You know what I mean? Like, it seems like a very easy exploit that once figured out, like, word would travel like wildfire through the whole, like, ABLA, right? Like, everybody would know.
Yeah. Oh my God, it's just so fucking creepy. I hate it. Yeah, and the thing is, too, is like, she was sort of known around the unit as being, you know, like, quote unquote, crazy. And so, and the police had been there several times. And so when she's calling and saying someone's coming through the walls, like, they literally thought she was just a nut job. And she was telling the fucking truth. It's so upsetting.
Yeah.
Ugh. So.
Yep.
Yeah. So Tim says that him and Corey left, and these other 3 friends inside were the ones that decided that they were going to crawl through into 1109 and rob this woman. And Tim says that as they're leaving, they heard 2 gunshots. And And they said that the next day they saw these guys, taking out the rocking chair and the TV and whatever. And so it's presumed that it was the next day that they went back in and took her phone and all the things, because she laid there for 3 days before, she was discovered.
Did they take the rocking chair through the hole in where the cabinet was?
I think so.
Okay, how big is this cabinet? How small is this chair? Because how is a rocking chair going through that hole? Did they?
That's a great question. I don't know because it was still locked.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So either this was like a tiny chair, or the cabinet was huge, or they banged out the wall and like made a bigger hole.
Mm-hmm.
This is all very strange.
I know, it's fucking weird. So these dudes that were shoving the rocking chair through the hole, they're arrested. One of them. As you do.
There's a euphemism for you.
Oh my god. Oh my god. I have to tell you. Okay, did you listen? This is a total sidebar. Did you listen to the episode where I covered the Firefest?
Yes.
Okay, Jeremy's tagline now for when he's having a bad day is he's like, I'm just throwing luggage at FEMA tents.
Yep, he told me that.
It's my fucking favorite. He'll send me that and I'll be like, oh no, what's wrong? Okay. So the rocking chair shovers, they're arrested. They stay in custody until the trial starts, which is in March of 1990, 3 years later. It's just fucking ridiculous. The trial itself lasts 2 years, and in the end, there isn't enough evidence to get a conviction, and both are found not guilty.
I'm sorry. The trial lasted 2 years?
Yes.
What, of testimony every day with a jury?
If I had to guess, which I do, and I will, that it was probably, we don't care about these people from the project, so we're going to do continuance.
That tracks.
Yeah. So they're found not guilty because there's not enough evidence. In 1988, Vernita sues the Chicago Housing Authority for a wrongful death of her mom. She says that the design flaw of the building was the reason that her mother died, and they should have made the medicine cabinets more secure.
Fuck yes, they should have.
I dug, and there's no information on how that lawsuit settled or if it settled or anything. Nothing. And then, of course, when law enforcement is asked why they didn't investigate further when they first responded to Ruthie's apartment, they said, quote, they were used to calls from the projects just being hoaxes.
I'm sorry. They were used to calls from the projects just being hoaxes.
Yes.
In the area where the crime rate is twice as high as the rest of the city of Chicago, they were hoaxes?
Yep. Yeah.
Oh, fuck.
Well, they don't want to be responsible for a $20 door.
I cannot. I mean,
the worst part of all of this is that she was probably still fucking alive when they responded the first time.
Look, you know how I feel about cops. This is not helping. This is not helping.
Oh, I thought you would love this.
No. I love this for Ruthie.
No, not for Ruthie. For shining a light on the problem. That's all.
Yeah.
So they said that, and then they're asked to provide, data for these fake 911 calls, and they said, there's no data, we just know.
Oh, there it is. There it is. We just know.
Yeah.
Those people in the projects are just crying wolf out there.
Yeah. So The movie Candyman was released in 1992. An article that came out regarding the connection of the movie to this story said, quote, urban legends tap our deepest fears. One of the most subterranean involves the call for help that is laughed at or ignored.
Except that's not an urban legend. Urban legend is like the guy with the hook that, like, you know, kills the teenagers making out as like a warning to teens for, you know, having premarital sex. The urban legends are not, they're not real. This is real. That is not urban legend. This is reality. We're not talking about some mythological thing. We're talking about it is real.
The thing that makes them so creepy is that woven into that is reality. And that's why it is made to feel believable, or like this could fucking happen, or I don't know. It's just fucking creepy. It's creepy and I hate it. And yeah, that was
I hate everything about this story. And thank you.
I'm sorry.
I hate everything about this story. Thank you so much for sharing it with me.
Now
I gotta go. I have to make a sign and go march down the street.
Okay, so the moral of this story
it's been fun,
is you march. Let's see what we would need to put on. We need to think about what we need to put on your sign, though, to do better for other humans.
Okay.
Let's start there.
Yes.
Low-income housing should look like regular housing.
100%.
And when you call 911, your responsibility is public safety and protect and serve. So fucking get in there and see what this woman needs. I mean, when you start getting really tiny font, no one can read your sign because there's so much more.
There's so much more. What? Maybe not a sign. Maybe like a banner, like a flying banner that says like this goes on like blocks behind me, and it's just a
okay.
It's just
so
a
what you're really talking about is a full fucking manifesto.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, but not like a Unabomber manifesto, you know?
No.
Like a positive version of a manifesto.
Right. Like if we didn't hate that we shall not mention, it would be adjacent to like Jerry Maguire manifesto. Like, let's do better.
Right.
Let's do better for people. Yeah.
Please.
Yeah.
All around.
Mm-hmm. So R.I.P. Ruthie. This was spooky for me to do.
Yeah, I'm proud of you.
Thank you. I didn't watch the movie to cover this. I did listen to an episode of My Favorite Murder. I also went to casetext.com to read through the lawsuit that never came to fruition. Looper.com, chicagoreader.com, unusualhorror.com, and Wikipedia.
Good job, sissy. Good
Thank you.
stuff. I mean, not good stuff, but like well done.
Important stuff.
Really well done. And that's interesting. Like I said, I knew that this story, I knew that the movie had been based on a true story. I just didn't. It seems to me more like it was inspired by, right?
Totally.
Like inspired by not just like Ruthie and what happened to her, but the projects themselves and the conditions that these people live in, and the Black community, and how they're treated, and how, like you said, how they're ignored or not believed or dismissed when they have real, requests for help. And and that is horror. I mean, that's like, have you watched any? I know you don't like horror movies, so I'm sure you haven't watched any of the Jordan Peele movies. He has a new one out called Nope, and I haven't seen it yet. But and people have been really good about not spoiling it, so I'm not really sure exactly what it's about. But I really want to see it. But like that's his thing, right? Is like that. He's good at that. Like, let's take something that's real and like show it for what, like, the horror that it is, you know?
Yes. Yeah. I think that's what Candyman was doing, was
right.
Exactly that.
Well, it was effective because it traumatized you.
Oh my God. I don't even want to talk about it anymore. Anyway, I can't even. It's so scary.
Thank you, Sissy. Do you want to hear a chaos story today?
Yes, I always want to hear chaos.
Okay.
Okay.
So, this one's a little winding. This is a little bit of a winding tale. So,
Okay, perfect.
and it's not super long. Actually, the meat of it is not a lot, but I had to tell you the story. So, we're gonna learn about Goat Man.
Oh no. Okay. Perfect.
So, I have a few things to tell you to get this story kicked off.
Okay.
First. Okay. The same night that we recorded last, I was listening to the newest episode of Odd Trails, the new podcast from Andrew Tate he's the host of Let's Not Meet.
I love Let's Not Meet. Yeah.
So he has a new podcast. It's called Odd Trails, and it's similar to Let's Not Meet, where he reads stories that he gets from listeners, but rather than, the kind of people one version, it's like ghosts and cryptids and things like that. Weird stuff.
I need to check that out.
Yeah, and he has a co-host. Yeah, it's really great. He has a co-host named Brandon Lanier, and they kind of go back and forth narrating and reading these stories. And one of the stories was about a couple driving a country highway in like Alabama or Arkansas or something like that. And they swear as they're flying down this highway, they saw a creature off the side of the road with the body of a man and the head of a goat.
Okay.
Now, keep in mind, I had already decided that if I got to come back and if I was good enough to come back and tell another story, that I was going to tell you the story of Goat Man. And so I like heard that like that night. I was like, this is crazy. So Andrew, at the end of the episode, they usually do this little banter part at the end. And he says he wanted to know more. So he went looking for Goat Man in his trusty Google search bar. But all he could find was stories of Chess McCartney. Well, then of course I had to go figure out who's Chess McCartney,
right?
What Goat Man? Well, Chess McCartney was a Southern folk character who, starting during the Depression in the 1930s, traveled by a goat-drawn wagon up and down the southeastern coast of the U.S. His New York Times obit, yes. He had a New York Times obituary. Described him as thus: Mr. McCartney, who averaged 7 miles a day and had a regular route between Iowa and Georgia, spent most of his time creating traffic jams throughout the South, primarily along the old Dixie Highway running through Kentucky, Tennessee, Georgia, and Florida.
Okay, Forrest Gump, what is he doing?
He's just traveling back and forth.
Okay, as you do.
In a goat-drawn wagon.
Oh, God.
Every interview about him described his smell, which preceded him.
Oh, no. Okay.
But that didn't stop classrooms emptying out and families packing into cars when they heard the Goat Man had arrived in their town. He was like a storyteller / preacher type. So he was just pure entertainment. He lived off goat milk and donations.
Okay.
He sold junk and he charged for photos. You know, like those guys on the strip in Hollywood where the stars are that like dress up like Spider-Man and then try to get you to take a picture with them so that they can charge you for it. It was like, He was like one of those first people that like did that thing where it's like, yeah, you can take a picture with me for $5 or whatever.
Oh, a trailblazer, and eventually
he even sold Yes, he was a wagon drawn by goats trailblazer. He eventually even sold postcards and prints. Like he would have pictures in prints that he would sell of himself. So his life story is like pretty wild from beginning to end. He shook the hands of presidents. He even made an appearance on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson.
Oh,
so interesting cat, Chess McCartney, the Goat Man, or one of the Goat Men, as we come to find out. So, because I'm not really sure what type of search Andrew Tate was doing, because I found all kinds of hits about a cryptid goat man from like Maine all the way to Louisiana, right?
Okay.
Which is like a whole other category of goat man. Just like a minotaur, right? Or or a centaur, where it's like body of a man, head of a goat.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
we got the East Coast variety.
Incidentally. Yeah. So I was driving through Overlake like 2 days ago. I'm in the middle of pulling the story together, right? I'm driving through Overlake the other day. I passed by this big, crazy-haired, bushy-bearded man driving a beat-up old white like panel van that had a huge handmade sign on the side that said in red block letters, like by hand, "The Goat Man."
Stop it.
There's
a
telling
Washington Goat Man?
Well, apparently, there's people that like have goats, and I actually have like one of my friends, who you met, Nick, his girlfriend, she has goats, and like that's one of the ways she makes a living is she actually takes them places to like people's properties, and they eat the unwanted vegetation or cut the grass by eating it, right? Like it's this vegetation management. Anyway, so that's probably what he is. I just thought it was very strange in the midst of all this.
Yeah, that is weird.
Everywhere I turn, goats. But none of this was related to today's story except goats. Okay? So if any of your listeners tuned in for the glorious chaos story that was Grafton, New Hampshire, and the Freetown Project, you will recall our good friend Donut Lady.
Stop it. She makes an appearance here?
She makes an appearance here. She was one of the residents in Grafton who fed the bears on her property twice a day, topping the pile of feed she dumped under a tree for them with a dozen donuts, right?
Mm-hmm.
You remember.
I do.
Well, right around the same time as the start of her generosity to the local bear community, Donut Lady had another animal issue. After she and her husband moved to Grafton, they bought 2 cows, Buttercup and Princess.
Okay.
Princess died.
Uh-oh.
And Buttercup wept endlessly for weeks.
That's
Donut
awful.
Donut Lady was distraught and she didn't know what to do, and she wanted desperately to relieve Buttercup's grief. So one morning she's reading the paper and she comes upon a story about a man across the Connecticut River in Corinth, Vermont, who was having a hard time caring for his own cow. It seems the man, Chris Weathersbee, allowed one of his steers to die of starvation.
Oh, God.
And the steer's brother, Monty, wasn't doing well.
Oh.
Yeah. So Donut Lady calls up Weathersbee and she says she wants to take Monty off his hands. Mm-hmm. And Weathersbee is skeptical and hesitant, right? Because his standing in the community had taken a huge hit when the news of his steer starving to death got out, right? So he doesn't entirely trust Donut Lady.
But why did his cow die of starvation? What was he doing?
Well, we'll get there.
Okay.
We'll get there. Yeah.
Okay.
So Weathersbee at this point is in his mid-60s. Mm-hmm. Okay. His mom was Mary Lee Settle. Mary was born in Charleston, West Virginia in 1918 to a fairly well-to-do family. And she moved to New York City to pursue an acting career. She and her first husband, who is Chris's father, moved to England, and that's where Chris was born. Her subsequent marriage resulted in no other children, so Chris has no siblings. He's an only child. Her return to America marked the beginning of an esteemed and writing and teaching career. In fact, in 1980, she founded the U.S.'s most prestigious and lucrative prize for fiction, the Penn-Faulkner Awards.
Holy shit.
So she's the one who actually, she was a big mamma jamma, right? So she actually owned the property in Corinth, Vermont, that Weathersbee was living on at that point. Okay. He moved there in 1997, and it had 3 goats on it at the time. Weathersbee considered himself a Buddhist or a Franciscan. There's been varying reports. I can't quite decide. I couldn't figure out for sure if he was a Buddhist or a Franciscan, and I don't know the difference between the two, and I'm apologizing right now because I don't know, and I didn't go looking. But he intended for the 29-acre farm to be a goat sanctuary.
Okay.
So by 2001, just 4 years after he moved there, the property contained 252 goats.
Holy shit.
And Weathersbee is known in town as Goat Man.
Okay.
He spent all his time caring for these goats.
Oh.
Yeah. So when Donut Lady and her husband pulled up onto the property in 2004, looking to save Monty, the goats had completely taken over.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. So Donut Lady goes up to the front door and she's knocking and she's getting no answer. And so she lets herself into the house.
She does? Donut Lady gives zero fucks.
I can't, like, who does that, right?
Somebody you don't know?
Yeah, whenever I see that in a movie, I think, who does that? And then, like, I read a story like this, I'm like, I guess people do that? Like, I would never.
Yeah, like, you and I would do that, but not a person you don't know.
No.
She's there to inquire about his cow, right? And
yes.
She just lets herself in. Donut Lady needs to calm down. Jesus
Maybe
Christ.
She's on a sugar high.
Yeah, too many donuts. Let's calm down. Fucking Donut Lady. Jesus Christ. Okay. Anyway, great.
Okay. So she lets herself into the house and there's no people anywhere to be seen. However, apparently the previous winter, Goatman was worried about the newborn goats making it through a particularly cold season. So he moved them into the house, the newborn goats.
Into
and
his
of course,
house?
Their nursing mothers into his house. And they're newborns, so he has to bring the nursing mothers in so the newborns can continue to nurse. Oh, well, and the really old goats, right? The really old ones, they need to come inside from the cold. And the sick ones and the frail ones.
So all of them.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, but he did bring in a total of 70 goats into his house.
Oh, okay. All right.
252 on the property. Well, at least at some point, probably more than that now, but 70 of them are in the house.
Great. I bet it smells really good in there.
Yep.
Yep.
Oh, yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the cold snap passed, but the goats stayed. Okay.
Oh.
So, Donut Lady's checking it out, looking for people, and she's moving through the house looking for a sign of Weathersbee somewhere. And all she found was goats everywhere. In the kitchen, the living room, the stairs. Chickens are foraging on the counters.
Oh, God. Oh, my God. Okay.
She found a sleeping bag on the living room floor where we presume Weathersbee slept. It's reported that he just laid there and slept, and the goats just kind of stepped on him and walked on him. Just did whatever they wanted while he slept on the floor.
The chickens pecked at his head. Whatever.
Whatevs.
Uh-huh. Oh, my God.
So the accumulation of hay and goat shit on the floor was so thick that Donut Lady was almost bumping her head on the ceiling.
Sorry. Okay. Wow.
Uh-huh. But the real horror show was in the barn.
Uh-oh.
Outside. Which was filled with ungodly amounts of goat shit and dead goats mixed with the living.
Oh, no. This is like Hoarder's Animal Edition.
Exactly.
Dead goats?
That's exactly right.
Oh, God. Okay.
Okay. So all of this must have happened just prior to February 2004, because at that time, authorities raided the farm and they seized 44 goats deemed unhealthy by a state veterinarian.
Oh.
Look, I've had to piece this story together through so many news snippets, most of which just gave me like the same few bits of information written almost verbatim, like over and over and over again, you know, when you right?
Yeah.
But here's what this is what I've been able to like piece together and deduce.
Okay.
Roughly. As best as I can. Okay. So over the 4 to 5 years, Weathersbee lived on the farm in Corinth, growing his goat horde. He just had a rough go of it the entire time. His beliefs, Buddhist or Franciscan or whatever, meant that he couldn't give any of the goats away because that would mean they would be killed. And he would only give them away if he could be assured that they would be kept alive.
Okay.
He couldn't keep them from reproducing because his beliefs also kept him from neutering them, gelding them, whatever the word is for goats when you take their balls off.
So no Rocky Mountain oysters were
like no harm. There. No, that's right.
Okay.
No harm to the animals in any way, shape, or form.
I mean,
this is a sanctuary. Amber.
I respect that, but we've got to do something to curb the breeding. Separation,
right? So
separating the males and females. I mean, something. Because what are we doing? Okay.
Hoarding goats
and being stepped on in your sleeping bag.
Yep.
Okay.
That's right. Mm-hmm. Okay. So his only income was a monthly disability check that he spent almost entirely on hay for the goats.
Oh.
And in the winter, it cost $150 a day in hay to feed all these goats.
A day in hay.
That's a lot of hay.
That's a lot of fucking hay. That's more than to feed a human. I mean, granted, there's 200 and something of them, but how was he eating? Is he eating hay too?
Maybe he's just living off goat milk and donations.
Oh, okay, great.
I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So eventually he actually ends up being about over $15,000 in debt to his neighbors in hay. So in addition to all his money being spent, he's also going into debt getting hay from his neighbors to feed these goats.
Shit, he's got like a hay account that he's not good on.
That's right.
Yikes. Okay.
At some point, at least once, maybe twice, he went on a hunger strike one winter. To try to get the attention of like some animal organization or anyone that cares about animals that would come and help him with his goats, and no help showed up.
Oh.
So in this same year, the farm was raided and those 44 goats were seized. He had a run-in with a school bus.
What?
So yeah,
what?
So he was herding the goats down the street.
Mm-hmm.
Like off his property, like on the street, and a school bus on its regular route came down the road and it scared some of his goats off and kind of scattered a bunch of them. And the bus stopped to let some children off, you know, like school buses are supposed to.
Right.
And Weathersbee lost his shit and started yelling at the bus driver to keep the bus moving and yelled at him, you should go around the goats, and the driver's just like, fuck I am, right? This is where I stopped to drop off kids.
So he was on a walkabout with his goats? Was this like a daily thing? Why was he walking down the road with his goats?
I don't know.
Okay. Okay. Great.
I don't think he knows. And so Weathersbee starts banging on the bus. He's banging on the bus, first with his hand, and then with like this aluminum rod that he's been using to herd the goats with.
Uh-huh.
So he's like hitting the bus with this rod. Side note, the bus stop was moved down the road to avoid further incidents.
I'm sure it was. Those kids are like, I'm not getting off at fucking Goatman's house. No way. I'll take the next stop and walk.
Right? That's right.
Yeah. Whew.
Okay.
This was also the same year. This was also the same year that his neighbors called the cops on him when his goats escaped into his neighbor's yard and ate her blackberry bushes.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I mean, look, blackberry bushes are practically weeds, right? They are like, everyone I know is always whacking away at trying to keep the blackberry bushes at bay, right?
Totally.
People literally, like we were talking about earlier, people pay for goat herds to be left on their property to eat their blackberries, like, on purpose, right?
Yeah, because it gets out of control.
Right. So I'm pretty sure this was just like a valid excuse for the neighbor to bring Weathersbee yet again to the attention of authorities, right? I mean, to be fair, he sounds like a pretty shitty neighbor.
Yeah, I would say.
So, like, any opportunity to, like, get him in trouble, to, like, move this shit along, literally get this goat shit along, right? But also, like, ACAB, so, like, don't call the cops on people, you know what I mean? So, I don't know, I'm of two minds, right?
And you can be, you're allowed.
So,
yeah.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I believe both things at the same time.
Sure,
I can do that, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so this seems like a pretty big deal, actually, for this little town. In 2020, the population was just under 1,500 people. So this is not a big town, right? So near the end of summer in 2004, there's this huge meeting called. More than a dozen state and local officials meet in Montpelier to discuss what to do about Weathersbee and his goats, who have been roaming free through his neighbors' yards and in the road, destroying property, posing a public safety hazard. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and they could fine him, but it wouldn't do any good because he's indigent, basically, and he would never pay the fines off. So there's just like, that's not a solution, right?
He can't even pay his hay off.
Right.
Yeah.
They couldn't legally seize the goats because technically they were fed enough.
This is weird because a lot of, sorry, I didn't mean to interject.
No, go ahead.
A lot of places have, I know Washington does. There's a cap on how many animals you're allowed to have per square feet of property. There wasn't something like, because even if they're fed, that's still not necessarily humane.
It's 29-acre farm.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
How is he affording to maintain a 29-acre farm when he can't pay for hay?
Well, I don't think he's maintaining it, you know?
Okay. Fair. I don't think he's
this is the
maintaining
problem.
anything.
He's not maintaining anything. And, like, this is the problem, because the reason why these goats are constantly getting out is because the fences are constantly failing, and he has no resource because he's spending it all on hay. He's not buying, like, proper fencing, right? And or paying for the repairs on these fences that keep busting that the goats are getting out from, right?
Got it.
There's no maintenance. There's no maintenance happening here.
No, he's in over his head with his property and his goats. In a big way. Yeah. So the best that the meeting ends, and the best that they could come up with was to talk to him again, try to convince him to voluntarily give up the goats, and in the short term, organize volunteers to fix and shore up his fences to keep the goats on the property. Because that's the biggest, right? Like, that's the biggest issue for his neighbors, is these goats are just constantly roaming. So Weathersbee is getting some attention at this point, right? All these news stories I found from newspapers all over the country, including the Associated Press, were talking about his herd of 300 goats and the 70 that were living in his house and the raid. And clearly he did some interviews with some of them. Mm-hmm. So when he was asked about living with the goats in his house, he said, quote, "Every time I stand near the stove, there's a rumble and a clatter." What?
Well, because they know that he's making food if he's at the stove, right? They can smell.
That's cute. Why do I think that's cute?
Wait till you see the picture of him. So.
Oh, okay.
He told Goat World magazine.
I'm sorry. There's a Goat World? Oh.
There is a Goat World magazine.
Okay.
I knew you'd like that.
Okay. There's a big audience for this, I guess. Who knew? Okay.
There's an audience for everything, sissy. You know that. So he told Goat World magazine that his response to the authorities when they warned him they would remove all his goats was, quote, "I will resist you by every means at my disposal. If the sheriff comes, you'll have to shoot me."
Oh, no.
He claimed that none of his goats were starving and that, quote, "Getting rid of the goats means killing them, and I'm not permitted by all the canons I live by to do that."
Wow. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. All right.
He's very convicted.
Mm-hmm.
So he tried to get the authorities to give, you got to stand for something or you'll fall for anything.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Right. So he tried to get the authorities to give him more time to figure out a viable plan, which, as best as I can tell, involved getting some hippie Buddhist colony to come buy his farm and live there, while also allowing him to also stay and live with his goats in the barn and the fields.
Oh, so now he's like dipping his toe into just becoming a goat.
Right.
Okay.
He just wants to be one of the herd. He just wants to to be part of the herd.
Okay.
That's right. That's right. Okay.
That's right. Okay. Cool.
So by December of 2004, so almost a whole year has gone by since the raid. Mm-hmm. Weathersbee is sitting in front of a judge pleading out on 3 charges. Unlawful mischief for the Blackberries incident.
Okay.
Disorderly conduct. Hello, assaulting a school bus.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, animal cruelty charges from the raid in February.
Was this for the deceased goats that they found, or?
I believe it may have been both the deceased goats and the goats that had to be taken care of by the veterinarian.
Got it. Okay.
I think there were multiple counts of animal cruelty.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So he paid a nominal fee towards the vet bill for the cost of caring for the seized goats. I think they had him pay $20 towards like an $8,500 vet bill. Yeah.
Oh my God.
This is part of the plea. Yeah, I think this is part of the whole plea thing. And the plea deal gave him back his goats that they took with the understanding that he was taking his goat horde and getting the fuck out of Vermont.
Oh, he has to give up his 29 acres?
Well, he claimed that the Corinth farm was being sold and he and his goats were moving to eastern Kentucky to a farm where his goats were moving, where his goats would be used in a vegetation management project, like we've been talking about, right? Like they would be used right? They would work.
Sure.
It's believable, right? It makes sense. That's a believable, option.
Sure, totally.
So he was sent home to his goats, with his goats to get his stuff in order and move on and leave Corinth. So not very long after this, right around Christmas, one of his neighbors probably shot one of his goats in the face and left the body in his front yard.
Oh, no.
I'm getting the sense they weren't happy that he was still there with his goats.
Well, sure, but it's not the goat's fault.
I know.
It's sad. Okay.
I know. So that's when Weathersbee, who I think might have been lying to the judge about having a plan.
Okay.
Loaded up his car with as many goats that would fit and fled.
In a car?
In a car.
he's got like a clown car happening with goats. Is that what you're telling me?
That's right. That's right.
Oh my God. I hope it was like a Mini Cooper or something. What was it? And then he just
I don't know.
into.
I couldn't find what kind of car it was, but it just said it was like a small car. I see him in like an old Toyota Camry or something, like a Honda Civic hatchback. Like
Stop
goats
it.
Just like sticking out the windows, like the hatch not fully shut. I don't know.
Oh my God.
It definitely didn't have 300 goats in it. Yes.
Oh no.
So first he went to Ohio and he started over. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I'm pretty sure he just made up that whole story about the property even being sold, about moving to Kentucky, about having a plan. I really think he was just trying to buy himself more time to get his shit figured out.
Right.
So
I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Anyway, it turns out Ohio also wasn't cool with the goat man and how his goats lived.
Okay.
And less than a year later, he was facing similar issues with authorities there.
Oh, God. Okay.
And again, he loads up his car with goats and runs, leaving behind 220 live goats and 80 dead ones.
Oh, no. Okay. I have so many thoughts. Okay. Oh, my God.
No, go for it. Tell me, what are your thoughts?
There's something about, okay, I have said this forever, and maybe you can shine some light on this. This hoarding mentality is so hard for me to understand because it comes from like a deep, deep love and attachment to your stuff, to your goats, whatever it may be. But then you're actually mistreating your stuff and your goats. And I don't understand where the disconnect is happening.
It's so funny that you want to talk about this because, yes, I do know because I've actually, sidebar, the last couple of weeks I've been binging Hoarders.
Uh-huh.
And the more I watch it and the more I watch these stories and how they repeat themselves over and over and over again and how similar all these people are and like the disease, it is like a cousin of addiction.
Interesting.
It is almost it is very similar to addiction. It is, especially the way that it affects these people and the people in their lives. Like to convince a hoarder to let go of their hoard is just like convincing an addict to put down drugs.
Mm-hmm.
And they almost always have the same story. It always stems from trauma. It is a trauma response. It is a disordered trauma response.
Yeah,
but it's crazy.
Like, you watch Hoarders, and this is what it sounds like he's doing to the goats. Is like somebody might say like, oh, that vase, like I can't throw that away because it's like whatever. All these things are attached to it. And it's like, well, you've been literally stepping on it for 30 years, and there's rodent feces on it, and you're saying that it's important to you. How can both of those things be true? Like your goats are dying and malnourished and you don't want them to go somewhere where they won't be treated properly, but you're not treating them properly.
Right.
Oh, it's so hard to understand. It's so hard.
It's a mental disorder. It's a mental disease.
Right. And when you try and logic your way through like an emotional issue, you won't get there.
Yes. Yeah. No, it's crazy making to try. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So over 4 states, Goatman left a trail of dead goats, staying ahead of the law until police finally caught up with him in West Virginia. And when he was finally arrested, he had 16 goats, including 1 dead one in the freezer.
Oh no.
And he was stripped of his goats and he disappeared. I literally can't find another thing about him after this.
Oh.
That was it. That's my story.
Wow. I would like to think that he is like living in the mountains with free roaming like mountain goats.
I mean, that would be the perfect ending for him. Yes.
They don't need him to care for them, and they can exist together.
Right?
Yeah. Wow, sister, that was fucking good. You find the weirdest shit, and I love it.
Well, let me tell you. So I have, there'll be like probably more than I can, because I didn't write them all down. I have them in the email for you, so you can put them in the show notes. But I got a lot of my information from rutlandherald.com, vpr.org, and like a couple of other like news sites that I'll give you links to in the show. And of course, our good friend Matthew Hongoltz-Hetling, author of one of my new favorite books, A Libertarian Walks Into a Bear.
Oh my God. I fucking love it so much. Wow. Wow. Goat Man.
Goat Man.
I wish him well. The intentions were
good.
Me
too. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's my chaos today.
That was chaos. That was chaos. And Donut Lady made an appearance. Yeah. Wow. I love the wink and a nod to our former episode.
Well, I was reading the book, right? And like, when I was reading the books for the last story, there was this like little sidebar for like, a page and a half about this Goat Man. And I was like, I want to know more about Goat Man. What is happening here? This is a story in and of itself.
No shit.
Yes.
Wow. Oh my gosh. I love all that.
So New England serving it up hot again.
I guess so. Fuck. I'm gonna go there for a sissy trip or something. I got to see what's going on.
Yeah, totally.
Little lobster roll, little Donut Lady and Goat Man. Just check it out.
Check it out.
Wow, sister, that was fucking amazing. Thank you for that.
No problem. Thank you for having me on. As usual, always. That was fun times. That was good stuff. Yeah, I really enjoyed that.
Good stuff.
Well, one of these times I'll come on here and I'll do a crime story for you, since you always get to do crime. I know. So
I got to line you up so that you're crime. Although it doesn't have to be that way. You could just do crime.
I could just do crime.
We could do whatever we want.
Okay. You know what? Let's do whatever we want. Love it.
We can do whatever we want. I love it too. I fucking love you.
I love you. Today was so much fun.
It was so much fun. Thank you for coming. I appreciate you.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate
I love
you.
You.
I love you.
I love you. This is fucking motherfucking chaotic. Bye.
Bye.
Beautiful. Bye-bye. Bye.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Crime, Wine, and Chaos. Artwork by Erica Peterson. Music by Paul Abner. Audio editing by Amber Clifton. We are on Facebook at Crime, Wine, and Chaos and on Instagram at Crime, Wine, and Chaos Pod. If you would like to support the show or submit a listener story, you can visit our website at crimewineandchaos.com for our Patreon link and listener story submission. Cheers!